You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey folks, here we are, we're live. We are back in the Makeshift Studio. And it's still playing in the background. I'm still getting some feedback. I'm not sure why. Hold on, I don't know where that's coming from. Hold on. We got technical difficulties. Technical difficulties! Let me just turn that off. You know what? I got feedback and I'm not sure why. I'm going to unplug my headset. Is that helping? It's coming from my computer. Hold on. Boom. There, I've turned off the sound. I don't know what's going on over there. That's weird. Okay. It's probably on another channel over there. How's that for an inauspicious begin to the show? So welcome. This is Scotty Roberts. You're listening to the Intrepid radio program right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com. Go on over and see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. You can listen to archives of this show playing over there right now, as we are not live broadcasting over to Odyssey Radio at present, but we will be again soon. So welcome over here to the YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. And you know what? I said all of that without even really thinking about what I was saying, because my mind was thinking about the feedback and making sure I didn't run into that again. And so that comes off by rote, all of that stuff. So there you are. Hey, it's the trailer. That's it. And so, folks, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. Thanks for taking your time. I am now no longer at my home studio up in Wisconsin, but I am broadcasting to you from down under. Not down under, as in like Amanda B territory, Australia, anything like that, but down under the Mason-Dixon line down here in southern or southwest Louisiana, not far from Texas, actually. So I'm glad to see you all here. Welcome, Leslie. Welcome, everybody that's here. You know what I want to do? I do want to go over and open up the chat room on my main computer screen, which I cannot broadcast from because the internet is still a bit choppy here, believe it or not, after all of this that we've gone through in the last couple of months here. Internet's choppy, but I do want to see the live chat over here. So I'm going to do this and that and put live chat. Boom. Now I can see the live chat pulled out a little better than it was before, and readjust things. And again, because we're in the Makeshift Studio, you're going to see my fingers in your face. You're going to see stuff moving around. You're going to have things not happen the way it's supposed to happen, but that's the way it is. And this is the way we are. And that's just the way life is going to be for right now. And so welcome, everybody. Steph, welcome to the show. She's here. And Leslie Holker, welcome. Good to have you, Leslie. Siani Reese, nice to see you as well. More snow coming somewhere. Yeah, maybe up in Minnesota. Dry here in Kansas, says Steve Clark. Good to see you. Master Finn, nice to have you here. Good to see you, brother. Field Guy, glad you made it in. You were here very early. You saw my typo on the time. Sorry about this. Yes, the show is every night, folks, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Whether it says something else or not officially, it's 9 o'clock. So let's see. Let's see what else we got. Oh, thank you for posting that PayPal link, Leslie Holker. That is very helpful. I appreciate that. Yes, I got a haircut. I didn't think it was that noticeable because my hair is so short anyway, and there's so little of it left. It's like I've said, I learned in art class a very long time ago that Michelangelo, famous painter of the Sistine Chapel, famous sculptor, they said his sculptures were actually only compositionally perfect from one angle. That's the way I look at my hair. It's only compositionally perfect from one angle. I start turning my head, or I look down, you see all the baldness, you see all of what is not there. So it's a nice picture from the front, and that's about it. So, and I got this weird ass, like, oh, I don't know, some weird New Guinean islands kind of bald patch in the back of my head. I don't even get what the pattern is. It's not male pattern baldness. It's weird cartological baldness. Anyway, moving on. So I appreciate all of you being here. I'm going to give you a little link here, and you're going to see my finger as I do this. I'll try to do it with my left hand. If I go guests here and I say invite guests, let's see. Oh, I don't know how well I can do this. I'm going to copy this. It's copied. I'm going to go over here, and I want to say something. Let's see if I can actually do it. I want to post something here. Let's see if it allows me to do it. Comments. It doesn't let me do it in here. It's so stupid. Let's see. The buttons on my phone are very different. Post a comment. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to post a comment, and I want to paste. Okay, this is the only time I'm going to do this. And I hit the chat button. Boom, there it is. Now, you see over there a link. That is a link if you wish to come into the show and talk with me, share your thoughts about some of the topics we'll be talking about tonight. And I'll have to put on my headset when we actually do that, so I don't, let's see if I can do that without causing too much turmoil here. In the Makeshift Studio, this is called lack of studio, lack of engineer and producer, and doing it all on a cell phone because your internet sucks. So there we go. I have unlimited broadcasting abilities on my cell phone. It's just all this big instead of studio size. So let's see, Matt. Steve Clark says, Matt, I cut about 20 more trees down today. Did that all by yourself? Steve, you went out there with a chainsaw or an axe? Were you, big Paul Bunyan going down and chopping down all your trees? I'll beat your steam shovel, said Big John, and used his hammers. So, yeah, same kind of thing. So glad that you had a good time doing that. I hope it was a good time, Steve, with your chainsaw. I could just see Steve out there, shirtless Steve, getting his, you used a bulldozer. Doug would use a bulldozer. Doug, how you doing today? I know you had, I wanted to get in touch with you today. I think maybe check your messages. I think Sam left you a message of some kind today, Doug. So it's good to see you here. I'm glad you made it in. And everybody else who's coming in, if I missed you by saying hello, welcome. That's one of the beauties of having a live show that is also a podcast on my live stream. Steph says, all I can say is I'm proud of myself because I grounded and I was very calm and in control for about an hour before this chat. Well, that's good. Steph, I know you were over there watching Jimmy V and Britt and Jeff, and we were all doing some politics for about an hour before this show. And so I'm fired up about some things, but that's not the topic I wanted to talk about. I did want to talk about some of Siani, thank you. I'll check my emails. I did want to talk about some of the stuff that I mentioned over there in the political show tonight is kind of a winder-upper. I want to bring this up. There's somebody if you're on my Facebook page, I reposted this. And I think that this is an important thing to look at, especially in light of some of the junk that's going on right now over this, the killing of this other young black man by a police officer who said she thought she drew her gun or thought she was drawing her taser, but accidentally drew her gun and shot him. And people are like, how can you not tell the difference? Well, when you're in the middle of something and you grab for it's happened before where they thought they were reaching for a taser or thought they were reaching for something else and they grabbed their gun. It happens. It's the way they're trained. And you know what? The best way I maintain to not get shot at by the police is to do what they say. He obviously was running because he had a warrant out for his arrest. And the body cams show that he was running. So I'm not getting into the details of that case. I'm just saying it was an accidental shooting. And it's like, well, maybe police shouldn't have guns. What are they going to use? Harsh language? So law enforcement in this country needs protection. They need guns. Let's leave that. That's another matter. We'll walk away from that. But I had a friend, a friend I would consider a very intelligent man. he wrote a very thought-provoking little piece. And I put it on my Facebook if you want to kind of follow along with it, if you're over on my Facebook by any chance. Hey, Delaney, good to see you. And hey, Scott Allen, nice to have you. A gun and a taser have different weights. I agree. But I think in the midst of something, you can make a mistake. As a matter of fact, wasn't it on the body cam? As soon as she fired, she said, "Oh my God, I shot him." She was shocked that she did that. I don't know. It depends on what kind of gun you're carrying as well. What it's made out of these days. It all depends. All I'm saying is I'm giving the police the benefit of the doubt rather than the guy who had a warrant out for his arrest and all the things we know about him. I'm giving the police officer the benefit of the doubt. Who's the good guy here? Who's the white hat? Who's the black hat? No race intended by that. So that's the way I look at those things, Scott. And I know you're just bringing up a topic for discussion. And she was yelling, "Taser, taser, taser." And then she realized she actually shot him. But here's what my friend wrote. Now, I want you to listen to this. Consider his words here. And don't go all nuts. And I know most people in this chat room don't. But listen to what he said. He said, African Americans or black people kill and are killed by police in numbers roughly proportional to the numbers of crimes committed by black Americans. Now, the statistics, I'm going to give you the statistics on that as we go through this, but the statistics bear this out. The best way, he says, to reduce police killings is to limit your contact with the police. Wouldn't that be a big duh written over your forehead? If I don't want to get killed by something, I don't expose myself to that something or put myself in the path of being exposed to that something. So if you don't want to get killed by the police, don't, you know what? Limit your contact with the police. Now, he wrote, this is my opinion. Eliminate, now this is opinion that he wrote. This is a whole bunch of stuff that might prompt conversation all on its own. But let me ask you this. He said, my opinion, eliminate from our rolls all victimless crimes and police contact will decline sharply for all races of people. Hey, Brianna, nice to see you in. Welcome to the show tonight. So get that? Reduce all victimless crimes, or I'm sorry, eliminate from our rolls all victimless crimes, and police contact will decline sharply for all races of people. Decriminalize drugs. Decriminalize sexual commerce of a voluntary nature. Decriminalize gambling. Stop asking police to be tax collectors. Respect every citizen's right to carry a weapon. By doing these things, police will contact civilians roughly, get this, 2,300,000 times fewer each year. There'd be 2.3 million less police contact with people every year. That's roughly 48% of all police contacts today. And so if that comes to pass, it's going to save the lives of roughly 600 civilians and 40 police every year. So what do you think of that? What do you think of that? Let me stop there for a second before I go into some more of his analysis here. If police contact is the reason that people get killed by police, and that's our big political concern nowadays, is, oh, the police need to be defunded, the police this, the police that, wouldn't limiting people's contact to the police then drop the numbers of those deaths? You wouldn't have to do anything else other than limit it, and you're cutting it almost in half. What were the, now this was his opinion, but he said this, decriminalize drugs. You know what? If you stop police pulling people over because they have marijuana or arresting people for marijuana, or if somebody wants to destroy their life with heroin, why don't you make it about as illegal as it is to destroy your life with alcohol, which is not illegalized. just the abuse of it and driving with it is. So here's the point. Decriminalize drugs. Decriminalize sexual commerce of a voluntary nature, meaning of a sexual commerce, meaning money for sex of a voluntary nature. Now that might go against your morals, but does gambling go against your morals? Does certain types of video games go against your morals? There are all kinds of things that don't match everybody's morals. You know, what if there's some poor sap out there that needs to pay for sex? Why should he be thrown in jail for doing that? Now, this is not a show about that topic. I'm just saying, if you decriminalize drugs, decriminalize sexual commerce of a voluntary nature, decriminalize gambling, stop asking police to be the tax collectors, respect every citizen's Second Amendment right to carry a weapon, you're going to cut contact between civilians and police roughly 2.3 million times a year. That's 600 civilian and 40 police deaths every year will be left off the rolls by statistic. And unfortunately, says Matt Finn, culture has made it fashionable to resist authority, and it's bred out to into more of this. Exactly. There's no need to be sorry, Siani. Even if we disagree, I wouldn't be argumentative with you. Okay. I don't know what that was about. I missed something because I'm talking. Siani says, oh, sorry. Hey, people, everybody can talk in the chat room. All I just say is realize that everybody's just expressing an opinion, and be careful with people. Be kind to each other. And it's okay to disagree on stuff. Steve says, while we would stop making stuff legal if someone gets killed for being stupid. He ran away instead of being handcuffed. That's it. You know what? I might get shot. I have this deep innate fear, this claustrophobic fear of being handcuffed. I don't like it. Even if I'm innocent, I'm handcuffed just to be detained until they find out I'm innocent or I didn't do the thing. I might not react well. That's bad for me. Now, hopefully I wouldn't get shot. No, I think though that my common sense would kick in. I'd probably say, hey, I don't do well being cuffed. I got a rotator cuff issue and all of that. So let's get this settled as quickly as we can. Now, statistics tell us that people who commit more crimes come into contact with police much more often. I mean, there it is, folks. I mean, that's a given right there. People who commit more crimes come into contact with police more often. And people who come into contact with police more often are more often killed by police than people who don't come in contact with the police. And more often kill the police as well. Now, my friend said here, I don't like dividing by race. Mostly because it's so wrong to be able to talk about race anymore or infuse race into anything. But Scott Allen says, my brother was arrested almost 80 times. Yeah, I'll bet he had more contact with the police than you did too. Well, if he's arrested, yeah. So my friend said, I don't like dividing by race. I don't think it tells the story correctly. However, since this is the language of our times, black people are 3 times more likely to be killed by police officers than white people. Now, you catch that? Black people are 3 times more likely to be killed by the police than white people. Now, black people are 13.4% of the U.S. population. But black people commit 39.6% of the murders in the United States. They are only 13.4% of our population, but they commit 39.6% of murders. Now, this is racially speaking, it's the black American. And these numbers come from UCR.fbi.gov, the expanded homicide data tables that are there. So 39.6% of murders are committed by black people in the United States. And 58.5% of killings, including non-negligent manslaughter and murder, all take place within the black community. And again, this is from the FBI's homicide tables. Now, overall, black people commit 29.3% of crimes, while there were at what, 39.6% of murders in the United States committed by blacks. Overall, black people commit 29.3% of crime. And you can still look at that same FBI chart. Black people are overrepresented in every class of crime tracked by the FBI, except for DUIs, liquor laws, and public drunkenness. The black community does not lead in those three categories. Now, at the same time, in 2020, black people were 28% of those killed by police. So black people appear to be killed by police more often than their percentage of the population, because as a group, they commit far more crimes and therefore come into contact with police more often. And additionally, 39.78% of people who have killed cops are black. All right, so the statistics show that African Americans or black Americans are killed by and kill cops in numbers roughly proportional to the ratio of crimes they commit. So to stop violence, my friend concludes, reduce the number of police contacts. So if you don't commit crimes, you're not going to be confronted by the police. Now, of course, it brings up all the other arguments of poverty and all of that. And black society commits more crimes because they are more oppressed, the black community might say. And of course, there are other arguments that can be brought into this. But I thought that this was a very interesting set of statistics to take a look at, especially in light of all the talk now again about a young black man being killed by the police. Well, you know what? If he hadn't committed crimes, didn't have a warrant out for his arrest, wasn't afraid of being arrested for that, and hadn't run because of it, he probably wouldn't have gotten shot. That's my guess. So, anyway. So, Doug says, I've been questioned, aka profiled a few times, for being in areas white people shouldn't be in. It's where I worked, and usually I would go in around 3 and 4 a.m. And people get pulled over for driving while black, says Scott Allen. Yeah, sometimes they do. I've been pulled over for, I don't know if it's driving for being white, but there is also, you've got to consider the crime statistics as well. In certain neighborhoods or in certain areas, you might get pulled over because you're black, and they wonder why you're in that neighborhood. Now, if a lot of the crime in that neighborhood is committed by blacks, and you're there at the wrong time for the wrong reason, whatever, you might get pulled over. So some cops can be jerks, says Matt Finn. Hard to say what kind of cop any of us would be unless we're in that position. Exactly. And I would like to say that I wouldn't pull over anybody because of the color of their skin, but I might pull over. I saw some guys in a car yesterday, black guys. We stopped at a gas station on the drive from Houston back here to Lake Charles when I got off the airplane. And there were some black kids in there that weren't, as far as I could tell, on the surface, weren't doing anything wrong, but they were acting in ways that I have seen as being unsavory. Arm movements, the yelling at the woman in the car, the way they're dressed. It fits a profile of somebody that you say, I looked at my son and I'd say, if I was a profiler, I'd say that guy's tweaking right now. That guy's probably a drug user, probably has committed some crimes, probably part of a gang. The look of his car, the look of his clothes, the way he talks, the way he's acting. If I were a cop, would I arrest him? Probably not. But might I ask him questions if he's there? Maybe. Is that profiling? Maybe. You can't conduct proper criminal investigation or protection of society without having profiling. Profiling's there. I mentioned this on the show. I was on with JV and Company. And I've said it here before. Who sets the parameters of a profile? Is it just the profiler going, let's take these random elements now and add them into the profile? Or do they look at the overall abundance of crimes being committed and say the profile is people who do this, 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 and this, or look this way, dress this way, talk this way, drive this kind of car, play this kind of music? These are the people that predominantly fit the profile of people who've committed the vast majority of these crimes. So it becomes a profile. So it's like, what if, and this is the example I brought up, and I've said it here before, what if red-haired, bearded, kilted Scotsmen were committing crimes out there? And that became the stereotype. If you looked out your window, or if you were a cop driving by, and you saw a red-haired, bearded, kilted Scotsman standing in somebody's yard at night, might you pull over and say, and ask a few questions? Profiling is set. Stereotypes are set by the stereotyped. They're the ones who create the criteria for profile, to create the criteria for stereotype. Brianna says, a mother African-American lost her son to violence. She made it a mission to undertake the young men on her street. Her heart and actions made the governor rename her street after her for her crime decrees. Yeah, crime decrease. Yeah, exactly. That's cool. That's great. That is a citizen taking on something to try to rectify, to try to make things better. I don't buy it. I'd hate to go into battle with her. I'm not sure you're talking about. Bad trigger weapon discipline. There you go. I'm not sure what you were talking about there, Scott Allen, but Steph said we had cops who were underage drinking. We had cops when we were underage drinking. Some would make us pour our beers out in front of them. Others would take our beer and put it in the trunk. So they kept it and let us go. Yeah, that happens. You think there isn't pot that's confiscated? My son Sam has known cops to smoke pot off duty. So stuff happens. So I'm just saying, in light of all the rioting and the things that are going on, the rioting is nonsensical. We are not a country that accomplishes things by mob rule. And I don't care the justification that people put on it and say, well, the Sons of Liberty is storming the ships in the Boston Harbor and dumping tea in the harbor. That was mob rule. You're also looking at a nation of people that was fighting against tyranny. They dumped tea in the harbor. They didn't get off the boat and go start burning and setting afire the businesses of all their neighbors at the same time. They protested myopically with a point to make. We're going to dump your tea in the harbor. They didn't burn down their homes. They didn't burn down the homes of their neighbors and the businesses of their neighbors. So anyway, that's a point I wanted to make because it's going on live right now. And I thought my friend made some very good points there. And I thought his statistics were spot on. So I'm going to shut that one down. We don't even have to look at it again. So we're not going to talk about that again. There was another topic I wanted to hit. Totally different. And they kind of segue into each other, but not perfectly. So let's put a little sorbet, a radio sorbet in our mouths and ears and move on. Let's cleanse ourselves from this topic and move on to a different topic. And by the way, that link I put in up above, if you want to comment, you can certainly come in and comment. If I see you here lined up, I'll call you in if you want to talk about this or anything else. But I did want to talk about, there's a little article I saw called Periodolia. Does it teach us the difference between life and death with affection? And I thought this was an interesting point of view. Now, if you don't know what pareidolia is, that's the seeing objects in patterns, seeing faces in patterns, seeing things in patterns. There's a lot of it with ghost hunting, that somebody says, well, look at this photo, and this is pareidolia. And it's that seeing a ghost out of a pattern that is made with a curtain in a window and light reflecting or something like that. So that's basically what it is. And this author contends that as a child, that she thought that the dolls, the teddy bears, the stuffed animals that she played with were living creatures. And a lot of kids do that. They pretend that they're living creatures. And she said that this was a question that she came across while participating in a recent research study that was conducted. It was research which examined relationships between imaginary childhood friends and ghost-related experiences. So are imaginary childhood friends and ghost-related experiences one and the same? Or is there a psychological reason that some of these exist sometimes? So a research was conducted by Dr. Neil Dugnaw and Dr. Kenneth Drinkwater, researchers in the Department of Psychology at Manchester and Manchester Metropolitan, MMU. And a few days prior, this woman had read this article called Understanding the Child Eyewitness. And child eyewitnesses often see things very differently than adults do, but why? And we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to segue into that. But professor of experimental psychology, California State University, Fresno, was this Matthew J. Sharps who conducted this study, specializing in forensic cognitive science. Yeah, Drinkwater, there's a name for you. Is that an Indian name? Is that, I don't know exactly. It sounds very manufactured, put together name. So there's a reason he has it. And by the way, hearing me squeaking, this camper, while I was out of town at home, was taken in to have some repairs done. And this is the table now. So there, you see what that does. The table's all loose and squeaky, so I can't lean on it anymore. And I got to watch myself, or I'm going to keep poking you guys in the face with my hands. So, looking at this question, it was asked in the survey. How do you about children and his children's active imaginations in creating these? Did you have imaginary friends when you were a kid? So in creating imaginary friends, is that the same thing we see when they see ghosts? And it makes you think about why it is that we think of a teddy bear or a Barbie doll as being alive. It's kind of like the whole theme of the animated film Toys and all the Toys movies. And can we consider this question as such as covering the area of clinical psychology instead of parapsychology? Because, so the article of Professor Sharps explains, each young child is viewing the world from its own ego, its own self, its own perspective. And even though both research fields address this behavior, we see mostly with young children, I let my thoughts run over why is it that they don't make a clear distinction in what is alive and what is dead sometimes. You notice you throw a little kid's stuffed bear into the washing machine. And it's not a stuffed bear, it's bare. It's bare. They attribute life to it. So digging into both the psychology of Jung and Freud, you have to come to this personal conclusion that it's due to the fact that a young child's id is still in an early stage of development. Or perhaps hasn't even reached that stage yet. The brain of a child, say the age of 3, hasn't yet fully understood the difference between artificial and biological objects. And so it also seems that the superego of a young child hasn't yet found an attachment or a connection to their ego and their id meaning. And a young child hasn't yet the ability to view itself from the position of others with awareness. And this shows a behavior. It's viewed from a psychological point of view of a young child experiencing anything that's been characterized as characteristic features of both its own and similar species as a living thing possessing a soul. Did you think that of your toys when you were younger? Hey, Durwood, I haven't seen you for a long time. Good to see you. Nice to have you here. Welcome to the Makeshift Studio down here in Louisiana, where we don't have a proper studio set up at all. So good to see you. Haven't seen you for a long time. And so from the perspective of the young child, the ego, everything's alive as soon as it has a face. And this is why young children are crying dramatically and are inconsolable when you place their teddy bears, what also has arms, legs, ears, and a little tail, in the washing machine. You're not washing it, you're drowning it, you know, kind of thing. So the thought crossed my mind that if we can pour this seemingly primordial behavior into viewing the world from a too young child logical blurry position, is the brain learning to recognize the thin line between life and death through a clear face recognizing in the face recognition in the jar of pareidolia? Perhaps we can. And this is a question that's being raised psychologically versus parapsychologically. Even though the most common explanation of experiencing an effect in pareidolia, that is this form of the brain perceiving and processing information, is meant for recognizing prey or predators, what's safe, what's dangerous. There might be another reason why many of us experience these moments of pareidolia. I keep saying pareidolia, pareidolia. I've said it many different ways because there's too many vowels together in that word. It's easy to do that. So even long after we pass the age of 5, we can do this sometimes. Let's imagine a small child. I'm sorry, triangle-shaped pillow of any color. Has no recognizable features. That is, it's not of any kind of human or animal features to be seen. Has no face, no limbs, no meaning. It's just a pillow. And when seeing this piece of stuffed cloth spinning uncontrollable in a washing machine, no harm's done. No harm, no foul, nobody's being hurt. Now, what would happen when we draw a face on it? Indeed, many people are going to feel particular affection toward it and might even give it a name. This pillow instantly comes alive, especially for children. Now, think about the movie Castaway, which I really liked that movie for many reasons. Tom Hanks, where he's stranded on an island for 3 years. And it was only in the moment that the Tom Hanks character recognized a face in his own bloody handprint on the volleyball that Wilson, the volleyball, came to life for him. It didn't actually do anything, not even in the movie. You never saw anything animated about him. He put his bloody hand on the ball and it left a handprint, and he kept nurturing that over time to make sure the image didn't fade. And he recognized that face. And then Wilson came alive for him, and he spoke to him, believed he was speaking in his head. Before that, Wilson was just a volleyball. And later on in the movie, we can also see how Tom Hanks' character, Chuck Nolan, is showing a strong affection toward the volleyball Wilson. He even tried to save Wilson from drowning by leaving his own safety raft that he had built. And the ball had gone overboard and started drifting away in the waves. And Chuck was devastated to see his friend dying. This was a psychological thing. So if we review the question, as a child, I thought that the dolls, the teddy bears, and the stuffed animals that I played with were living creatures, from the thought that face recognition, or pareidolia, is most likely the brain learning how to make a clear distinguish between something being alive or dead. I think that we shouldn't ignore this ability of the brain. And this paranormal phenomenon now that we face with this, pareidolia, is an important evolutionary process, I think, in somebody's life, as it's teaching us how to treat both ourselves and others in our adult lives. That has nothing to do with paranormal, but we brought it over. And so it seems that our species, we're in a deep need for any form of pareidolia of what in this line of thought is teaching us what affection is. Also, if our brain wouldn't possess this primordial super ability, life would look pretty robotic. We might not even be able to, say, bury a deceased one due to lack of emotional affection with the recognition. And so I think pareidolia has its place. So, and I think it's a good thing. And we experience it in, I think, paranormal work for those same reasons. We want to put faces to things. We want to be able to identify with them, to have affection for them. And so I think pareidolia is a normal thing. It's a psychological thing. It's something that teaches us to fear prey, to not be prey, to fear predators, and so on. We recognize things in the abstract sometimes. Matt Finn says, my little man is learning to stand on his own, saying a few words now. Fantastic. So I'm high and dry at my house, says Doug. I'm sorry to hear that, Doug. I missed any other earlier part of that, but being high and dry is a good thing. Matt Finn, aren't you too old to have one just learning how to stand, says Doug Stack. Hey, you know what, Doug? When I was 54 years old, my little girl was born. So, you know what? You're never too old. Doug, you're never too old to have kids. Matt, you're never too old. Anybody listening, you're never too old to have kids. So let's move on, though, because I want to take this into some other things. I'm looking at this idea of understanding why in forensic psychology, and this would maybe be a good thing to have Sarah Soderlin on for, because she's I don't know if she's finished her PhD or still in the midst of her PhD work for being a forensic psychologist, but she's also as we all know, a paranormalist. But this article that I have in front of me isn't written from a paranormal point of view, but more a psychological one of understanding children as eyewitnesses to things. And then time permitting, damn, it's already 9:45. I want to talk about Bigfoot and Martians and ghosts and eyewitness psychology that helps us to understand paranormal beliefs and sightings. And maybe I'm just going to skip to that. I want to talk about this other thing, understanding child eyewitnesses. The developmental psychologist Jean Piaget formulated a broad theory of children's cognitive development, which is still used today. And I wanted to look at that forensically, but just for fun, I think I'm going to skip over that right now. Maybe we'll hit that in another way. But I want us to take a peek at this whole idea of Bigfoot and Martians and ghosts, and how eyewitness psychology helps us to understand paranormal beliefs and sightings. So I'm skipping over the part that really is going to sink into our heads what this eyewitness psychology is all about. And let's jump into this anyway, because I think it's fun. You can induce perfectly normal people to see non-existent geography, to see structures, to even see canals on a featureless white disk, provided they think it's an alien planet. And this helps to explain several scientific mysteries that include the last century discovery of non-existent canals on the planet Mars, which was really a product of bad lenses at that time and bad telescopic lenses. But it also explains a lot about more prosaic issues in forensic psychology. If the mind can turn a featureless white blob into an inhabited world, it can certainly turn a blonde suspect into a memory of a brunette, or one kind of a gun into a false memory of another. And granted, the Martian example is a lot more extreme, but we can learn a lot from extremes. Something that's been learned in forensic psychology is that the mind can play tricks on itself, and that the mind can be led to believe something else. One of the ways I know in a court of law to discredit an eyewitness is to cast doubt on their testimony by saying, now, did you really see a blonde? Or was it a blonde maybe wearing a red scarf? Was it a redhead? And things like that. So they can cast doubt that way. Good night, Siani. So you got to get back to work. Night, everyone. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Have a beautiful rest of your evenings, says Leslie. So not everybody sees canals on Mars, or mentally turns blonde assailants into brunettes or redheads in criminal cases. So why do some people see and believe in things that either might be unreal or things that aren't there while they're observing them, while others don't? Now, here's where we have to turn back to the extremes. And that's the table squeaking, by the way. You hear that? So when I lean on it, I guess I won't lean on the table. So we have to turn back to the extremes. And psychology doesn't get any more extreme than in the world of Bigfoot, space aliens, and ghosts. Now, nobody's had any hard evidence that these things really exist. Not hard evidence in the sense of anything that's broader than anecdotal evidence. I would say I have had hard evidential experiences of these things. I've seen some of these things. I've experienced them. But they aren't things that would stand up in the court of law beyond my word, my anecdotal experience. Yeah, it almost sounds like a drum roll, doesn't it? So, so nobody really has this hard evidence. Can any of you cite cases of people that have hard evidence that cannot be refuted by something else? That's what I mean by hard evidence. You can throw doubt on something, but can you refute something? It's the question. So you have to wonder, has anybody had any hard evidence of these things? Bigfoot, space aliens, and ghosts. Maybe in their own personal experience they have, but maybe not something that would be considered hard evidence by people on the outside, an objective third party looking in. So people see lots of flying things in the sky that they can't identify. I've seen UFOs myself that I can't identify as. Actually, somebody asked me the other day, have I ever seen a UFO or a Bigfoot? No. But I don't know that I haven't. I've seen a lot of flying things in the sky. I once had somebody that was using night vision binoculars, a really high military grade, and looking at the sky. And if you look up at any sky, this was done in, where were we? We were in Taos, New Mexico. And we were looking up at the sky with these. And the amount of things you can't see with the naked eye is amazing. All kinds of things. Some that you could see were satellites that were crisscrossing. But then you'd see things flying and turning and making angles and moving around. And not fluttering like a bat or a bird, but things that you could see. So people see lots of things. I've seen lots of flying things in the sky. Can I give you hard evidence as to what they were? No. But I've seen some of these things. They're generally things like birds and bugs and satellites and things like that. But they still count as unidentified because I don't know them personally. I don't know what they are. But as to the space aliens themselves, Bigfoot, the ghosts, unless you're a true believer in various bits of dirt, hair, fecal matter, things like that, you're pretty much stuck with eyewitness accounts. And I've got a footprint casting on my office wall back home of somebody that had a personal piece of evidence. But it's still inconclusive because they don't know what made the footprint. And so we've seen how reliable all these kinds of things can be. I've had lots of ghost experiences. I've shared those here. But those are not experiences that would stand anything beyond saying, this is this man's anecdotal personal experience that he's sharing with you. So in light of that, yeah, sounds like a challenge. If that's you're speaking to me. I've seen a ghost battle Or maybe a vision, but never a UFO, says Matt. Sounds like a challenge. Durwood says shell. I'm not sure what you're speaking of there, Durwood. Not yet trying to get my hermit friend out of his shell to help me. So I missed part of that conversation. Sorry, because I'm talking and paying attention to this, and I'm not looking all the time over at the chat room. But I've seen a lot of ghosty things. I've had a lot of experiences. I've had visions. How do you make a vision stand up in a court of law? You don't. It doesn't. It's sad to say. They're just accounts, anecdotal experiences we have that we pass on. So unless you've got hard evidence, it's really hard to get people to see your account as being reliable, other than to believe that you yourself are a reliable person, so they trust that you had this experience. Now, we can make you an eyewitness to a Martian canal that isn't even there. We can do that with people. Power of suggestion. So why do people believe in and see Bigfoot, ghosts, and space aliens? There was a study that was done of this that used standard assessments to examine individual differences in those who believed in these things and those who didn't, based in part on one of these following hypotheses. One, depressed people would be more likely to believe in space aliens, who might take them to a nicer planet. Now, let's put in more simplified terms, might take them to a better place. The depressed should also believe in ghosts, because ghosts are evidence of an afterlife where things might get better. But we didn't expect the depressed to care about Bigfoot. And so think about that for a second. There's a lot of people's experiences I've heard that when you examine the person more deeply, you will find that that person is depressed or discouraged, or they have something they need to believe in. And so they believe it. This is something I talked about when talking about my books on the Nephilim, the reptilian factor. That there are people who believe these things because they need to believe in something that is greater than them, that pulls them forward. This can't be as good as it gets, they say. Number two, though, people with tendencies toward attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, just the tendencies, not the full-blown syndrome, probably wouldn't care about ghosts, but they'd be big on Bigfoot and UFOs. And since you need space aliens to drive the UFOs, they'd believe in them too. Now, this is the results of this study, by the way. Why do we think this? ADHD is complex. Many people have just a few of the subclinical symptoms. But we've observed in the lab that people with these tendencies usually hate to be bored. They frequently enjoy weird, exciting things like Bigfoot in the woods. They like some flying saucers mixed into there, especially with phasers or lasers. And the coolest thing would be Bigfoot flying the UFO, blazing phasers, clutched in each cryptozoological fist. But ghosts, quite frankly, no. Shrieking undead zombies, wielding machine guns, sure. But ghosts just don't make it. Not for those with ADHD tendencies. And so these ideas were tested with standard instruments, and the result were entirely consistent with the hypothesis. The depressed believed relatively strongly in ghosts and space aliens, and those with subclinical tendencies toward ADHD in space aliens and Bigfoot. And there was really no crossover. And if this doesn't demonstrate the genesis of these things in the mind rather than in physical reality, I don't know what does. But then there was disassociation now. We got to bring... Now, by the way, there are lots of believers out there, believers in this audience, of things like Bigfoot, ghosts, UFOs, aliens, things like that. I happen to be one of them. I'm a skeptical believer because I want to know why I believe something. I want to know what something is, but we do believe in these things. That doesn't mean we have ADHD, and it doesn't mean we're depressed. But these are tendencies that they found amongst these groups. But then you have to add into the mix the dissociation. Now, we're not talking about the terrible dissociative orders of the extreme kind, like DSM-5, things like that. We're talking about subclinical dissociation. Subclinical. which can make the world seem a bit diffuse and unreal. Dissociation can lead you to daydreams. I'm dissociative. I daydream a lot. I chalk it up to having a creative mind. I think and see things that way. But dissociation can lead you to daydreams and to a readier acceptance of the improbable. Everybody probably experienced dissociation from time to time, but some people experience it a lot. Now, dissociative, subclinical, meaning it's not a clinical problem with you. Everybody's got that to a certain degree. I think anybody with an imagination, anybody who wants there to be something greater out there, who thinks there must be something better, there must be something different. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be greater. Just something else that exists out there other than what we have here. So everybody probably experiences dissociation from time to time. And what we found again and again is that by the use of a standard instrument was that people who tend toward dissociation believe in everything. They believe in Bigfoot, space aliens, ghosts, the Loch Ness Monster. Sometimes even God gets thrown into that category. The 2012 Mayan calendar, the end of the world, everything, sharps. Leo and Herrera came to this conclusion in 2016. And it gets worse. The dissociated saw these things too. And so in all the experiments that we saw conducted, helicopters with landing lights at odd angles became UFOs. Teenagers in rather bad Halloween costumes became Bigfoot. Rumpled cloth in partial lighting became a ghost, and so on. But only for those with elevated levels of dissociation. Clinical dissociation. Everybody else saw aircraft and teenagers in cloth. So dissociation, even at the everyday subclinical level, doesn't just predispose you to believe in the unreal. It helps you to see it. And there's a flaw even in that thinking because it's not necessarily unreal. It is something that is outside what we consider to be scientifically real or provably real. So, in talking about the canals of Mars, guess who saw the buildings and the mountains and the weird colors and the canals on a blank white disk? That's right, those with a relatively high level of dissociation. There was nothing clinical. These were perfectly normal people who just happened to experience a little more of the dissociation that everybody feels on occasion. But they see and report things that don't exist at all. Now, this ties into this whole thing about witnesses of crimes and things like that, and pareidolia and all of that. So the importance of the phenomenon for a more practical world of criminal justice is really hard to overestimate. In previous studies and numerous articles have been written on this. It's been talked about how the normal reconfiguration of eyewitness memory and the influence of violent stress on our minds can play an effect on how we dissociate. And now we see the importance of individual differences. All of these factors can now combine to influence the eyewitness accounts critical to the process of genuine justice for the guilty and to the lives and the freedom of the innocent. Not as much as fun as Martians and Bigfoot, true, but perhaps not as intellectually satisfying as the study of scientific error, but of infinitely greater importance for suspects and the victims who come to the attention of criminal justice system is where this stuff applies in a forensic view. And we can learn a lot from the extremes out there. Now, I don't want to leave that just hanging here. We've only got a minute left. So I do want to say that there are a lot of things that we see and experience. Maybe they are enhanced by the fact that we all have a bit of this dissociation going on in our minds to different levels and different degrees. Maybe I will see more in something than you might because maybe I'm more dissociative than you are. But that dissociation isn't necessarily a negative point of our minds. It's the way our minds work to identify things. to protect ourselves sometimes. Are there people who have had genuine Bigfoot sightings? I'm sure. Can they prove it? Probably not. There are people, including myself, who have had genuine ghost experiences, spiritual experiences, visions, if you will. I've had them. I've talked about them on here. I've only had 2 that I know of, both in Egypt. So, is there something wrong with my perception? Am I dissociative enough that I'm creating things that don't exist or wanting to believe in something that doesn't exist? No, I don't think so. We all have the ability to see certain things and think certain things, dream certain things. But I do believe that there is a certain psychological element to all of this that we have to understand as well. Do I believe everybody's story that comes along and says, I've seen Bigfoot, or I've seen Martians, or aliens, or I've seen ghosts? So eyewitness psychology helps us to understand paranormal beliefs and sighting. What do we do with the story? Remember the story I told of the woman, and I wrote about this in my book on the reptilians? There was a woman that I spoke with who sent me a story about her experience, and she said, I've experienced the reptilian aliens. And I said, really? Could you tell me about this? And she said, they come every Thursday night, after midnight. He appears in my bedroom. I thought, uh-oh, I think I know where this is going. And sure enough, she described this guy down to the color and the texture of his scaly skin. They had a smell of cinnamony, cardboardy type of, take cardboard and cinnamon and kind of put that together, she said. He had the eyes, of course, the reptilian eyes. But he would make mad, passionate love to her every Thursday night. And I started to see this and wonder if this is somebody who was, now, I wasn't looking at them, don't anybody take offense at this, but I thought, this woman sounds like somebody who I would stereotypically, what's the word I'm looking for? Categorize. What's the word we were talking about at the beginning of the show? Why did I just blank out on it? I set the parameters of who I think this woman is, a pattern. It would seem to me the first picture I got in my mind of this woman was that she was probably somebody who was overweight, probably somebody who is a bit, if not a social outcast, profiling, that's the word, I'm sorry. Thank you, Matt Finn. Somebody who is overweight, maybe a bit of a social misfit or doesn't fit in socially, the handsome misfit. Maybe somebody who is either not married, not attached to anybody, or in a horrible relationship. I started seeing those things out of this person because they seem to fit the pattern or the profile of somebody that would dissociate enough to be able to see something like this or experience. Now, did she really experience this? I don't know. I don't know if she experienced this or not. Sorry, I keep looking up there where the camera actually is on the big computer, but it's down here on the phone that I have to broadcast from in the Makeshift Studio here tonight. So that's why I'm looking up there. Sorry about that, folks. Doug Stack says, I'm overweight, so I'm a misfit. Doug, do you see reptilian women with light brown scaly skin coming into your bedroom once a night or once a week? I would question that. So let's see. Durwood said something that looks like he was interested. Was heading into the dock at 9-foot wave, flipped over. I'm trying to look to see what you said, Durwood. A jackup is a utility boat with 3 giant legs, literally jacks up out of the water. I've seen those, if that's what you're describing. It was heading into the dock, 7 to 9-foot wave, and flipped over. Okay. Rescued, I found a dead 5 still missing. Oh boy. That's quite an experience, Durwood. That's not fitting into what we're talking about. I thought maybe you had a story that was fitting into that, but that's pretty crazy. And Leslie says, "Oh, Doug, you're hardly a misfit. You sure fit in with the rest of us Intrepids." Yeah, you do, Doug. You fit right in with us. So I'm overweight too, but Doug is down 88 pounds as of today. That's fantastic, Doug. I think I just saw that go by my face. 88 pounds, was it? Yep. 88 pounds today. That's fantastic, Doug. Kudos to you. So anyway, all of this stuff, these experiences can be real. These experiences can be things that are part of a mind that needs something. When I wrote my book about the reptilians, I got a great deal about a third of the book in, and I started shifting my gears away from the phenomenon to why we need these things, why we as people have these sorts of experiences and see these kinds of beings and need them in our lives. Very psychological, let's put it that way, the study is of it. And many of us need to see things. Many people need to see things or have these things in their lives to pull them out of the deep, depressed morass that they are in. Matt Finn say, hope they find the rest. Let's see, reptilian women, that is, says Matt Finn. I missed something you said there. So, Doug Stack says, I've lost a 5th grader in 7 months. Yeah, pretty much, Doug. It's crazy to think about that. So, folks, there it is. That's all. That's the only place I'm going with this. I thought it was an interesting study to look at. I don't think that I don't think these are all unreal experiences. A lot of psychologists, psychiatrists will look at these kinds of things, say people that experience them or see them, that there's something wrong with them. It's dissociative. It's clinical dissociativeness, dissociation. I would say that sometimes real things happen to real people. You just can't explain them away. As I've always said, there are some veils we cannot pierce. We just don't know enough to know how to describe them. Some people, I think, need these things, and so they create them in their minds. So there is that. And I think that's where pareidolia comes from. We like to create things in our minds. Some people need to do that. So anyway, there we go. That's all I got for tonight, folks. I could have gone a lot longer by going into understanding eyewitness testimony and how that works and all that all fit into this. But I think this is fine. It just kind of wrapped up nicely, even though we've already gone 8 minutes over time. But I don't think any of you have a terrible time when we go over. So here I am. Once again, we are back in the Makeshift Studio down in Louisiana. We don't have proper soundboards, proper mics, proper cameras. So the sound is a little funny. Everything shakes and rattles and rolls a bit more. And I have to broadcast via my phone as opposed to my computer because of the internet here. The internet is horrible. And so we're doing the best we can do. I want to thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And folks, keep in mind, we're on every night, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here. You'll find us over, we're just doing live streams over on my YouTube channel right now until we overcome. I don't know if we ever will before we're out of Louisiana, but overcome and we can get back live over on the radio station. So it's all really linked to internet and proper working equipment. So right now we're makeshift. And so thank you for still putting up with the show and for still being here. I appreciate your presence. Spread the word. If you like this show, let people know. Have them come on in. They can join the chat room. I'm glad everybody's there tonight. I hope I got to say hello to most everybody who came in. That's the beauty of having the live show in a stream format. So, once again, thank you, everybody. And you know what? We're going to take off. I'm going to say, you know what? Live long and prosper. And I hope you have a good night. So let's get out of here and let's do this to do it. Boom. You ready? Boom.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.